Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown. Thanks so much for being here with us. Our Beginning Again retreat happens on October 26th. It's 3 hours to join us for support and encouragement and comfort as you grieve the loss of a family member you might have taken care of. And over the next couple weeks, we're going to introduce you to the workshop presenters. And so I'm thrilled to have my colleague Nadim Sabor here today to talk out his workshop that he's going to be presenting at our conference. Nadim, thank you so much for being here today.
Denise, the pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Your story is really powerful, and I don't want to assign words to it, but it's a sad story. You have a sad story. Your mom died when you were 16.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Ooh-wee. So when a couple of years before my mom passed, really the year before it passed, she had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. So I spent a lot of time taking care of her leading up to her untimely death. Uh, Pretty much it was some days where at a young age, I think I could say this now, but like sometimes I had to drive myself to school or drive myself to different things of that nature because my mom sometimes struggled just to get out of bed to walk to the bathroom, let alone do some certain things around the house like cook, clean, whatever the case may be. So a lot of that responsibility fell upon me. And I remember a couple weeks before, she always asked me, does anything about my condition concern you? And I was like, no, there's nothing that really concerns me unless there's something I should be concerned about. And she said no. And I said, okay, we left it at that. A couple of days before she had passed, the doctors had shot iodine through her veins to try to see if there was a blockage because usually when you have congestive heart failure, there's some type of blockage. So they didn't find anything. So we're kind of back to square one. And I remember the morning that she had passed, I woke up and usually she was my alarm clock at that time. I didn't get a phone call that morning. My room was upstairs, her room was downstairs. Because stairs were difficult for her, she would call me to wake me up. So unfortunately, that morning I didn't get a phone call, so I woke up late. And long story short, I had found her dead in the morning of that day. And I still went to school and everything that same day. I ended up leaving a little bit early. I'm an only child. I didn't, my father wasn't around. I didn't have any siblings. So it was just kind of like, what do I do now? It was just like kind of tossed into a world on my own. But I do have to say, like, she, as a kid, she always said that she was preparing me for something else outside of her control. And I felt like in that moment was what she was talking about. Because I was raised so independent, I didn't have any trouble taking care of myself as far as knowing how to cook, knowing how to clean, knowing how to just do simple things. I was very fortunate, and I am a believer, so I truly believe in the scripture that God is a father to the fatherless and a mother to the motherless, because I never went without anything. Even though it's such a difficult time of overcoming, I was still able to excel in school. I was still able to excel in sports, friendships, relationships, things of that nature, was still able to go to a top tier university, met the love of my life, who's now my wife. I was able to experience so many blessings. And now I have a testimony to help other people go through similar situations that I may not would have had if I hadn't gone through that experience. I work in as an entrepreneur part-time. I work in holistic health space, helping educate people about healthy eating habits. I would have never really had a passion for that though, if that experience had never happened. And so even though in that loss it's given me a sense of purpose, a sense of direction for how I want to take my life, and ultimately too being able to help others, being able to be a light to help others throughout dark situations too, knowing that even though things can be traumatic, that there is always light in every situation that you can use to better somebody else's. And I remove myself from the equation. I always tell myself that experiences happen to us, but it's not because of anything personal against us. It's because we're going through it because somebody needs to be helped by what we went through. So
Okay,
that's kind
just
of a long-winded
yeah,
answer.
no, that's awesome. Just as an aside, you went to Purdue. I'm in Chicago, so you're a Boilermaker. I've been to Purdue.
Yes.
It's a beautiful campus. So just wanted to get, I went to U of I, went to Illinois. So
Okay, familiar with
yeah,
you a lot.
yeah. A little bit of a, what should we say, a friendly enemies, I would say, in the Big Ten
Yes.
Conference. Okay. So your story is really about you were a family caregiver from a young age, and
Yes.
I'm curious when would you say it started for you? How old were you?
Well, and then that's another question because I was also a family caregiver for my grandparents too before they had passed. And so I would say that that probably started at about, I would have to say 8 or 9.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. You experienced death firsthand at a
Yes.
young age. So your mom died in the morning and you went to school
Yes. Same day.
same day. And what was it like when you got to school?
I didn't really, so leading up to my mother passing, I was actually studying for two exams and two of my hardest classes that day. The day prior. So they were the next day. So when I was like, in my mind, I was like, well, the the last words my mom said to me were, I don't know where we would be if you didn't have your stuff together. And that was the phrase that I took with me into school that day. It was just like, yeah, this still happened, but I got to push through and get this done. That was really my mindset. And I left early that day. I went and I took my exams. I actually ended up doing well. And then after I took my exams, I went home and then kind of like regrouped and recentered. But I knew at the end of the day, I still had to get that stuff done because in my mind, that's what she would have wanted me to do.
She didn't want you to lose your future.
Yeah,
And so she had really been educating you about how to stay connected to your future, really
yes,
your whole life.
100%. 100%. And two, she made a lot of sacrifices for me, and I felt I owed the minimum to her to push through and continue on the path that she had sacrificed so much to put me on. I didn't want to let all that go to waste because, a lot of people you can spiral after losing somebody like that and going through an experience like that. And for me, it never sat right with me to let my life spiral downhill because of this situation, because that's not what she would have wanted.
Okay. There's a trauma to finding someone dead. And I'm
Yes.
curious if there was help for you, what was that? And if there wasn't, what would you have liked the help to have been?
Well, I was very fortunate that the reason we actually ended up moving to Dallas, because this all happened in Dallas, was to be closer to my mom's side of the family, specifically my grandfather's side of the family. So immediately, my family had showed up. First thing I did was call the police when my mom wasn't responsive. And then afterward, I called my family, letting them know what was going on. They were very instrumental in helping out. So I would say that I was between support from teachers, counselors, family, family itself. I felt like I was surrounded by a lot of love and help through that time and people that were just willing to step up. It was a true testament of my mom's character because she gave a lot to these people and they were folding it back into me.
Yeah.
But I would say the one thing that I wish I would have done differently would actually listen to some of the advice that people were giving me about going to therapy and getting the proper help to overcome. That would be the only thing. Nobody really pushed me that direction. I may have gotten like a couple like, hey, have you thought about therapy? And for me, I was like, well, I'm still doing pretty well in all these other areas of my life. I think I'm okay.
Yeah. What do you think therapy would have helped with?
Well, looking back on it now, realizing that it's okay not to have everything together. Think I
Oh,
took that phrase with me a little bit too hard. And when
oh,
it finally got to a place in my life after graduation, when you're graduating college, you're stepping into the real world, you're trying to figure everything out for your own, and you have nothing together. I put extra pressure on myself because I'm like, I let my mom down. I let myself down because I don't have everything laid out. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I wasn't unemployed at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It didn't seem like the future was laid out. So for me, I think that I could have adjusted to that transition from, I guess, childhood to true adulthood a little bit better if I had handled that situation and talked about that in therapy as well early on. And then two, my way I approach my relationships with others, I stop people from getting too close to me. Because before my mother, the closest person that was to me was my grandfather, and he had passed about 2 years before. So I lost my grandfather and I lost my mother. And I was like, subconsciously, it was a defense mechanism I was putting up. It's like, I can't love anybody this deeply or else they're going to die. to be extreme, but that was what subconsciously was going on in my head. And so with my wife, who's now my wife, at the time she was my girlfriend, I'm like, we can't really progress in our relationship because I'm scared I get too close to you, I'm going to lose you as well.
Yeah.
So I think that going to therapy earlier could have helped me overcome some of that. And I was approaching that with other relationships too. I wouldn't let people get too close. So I think I could have had more fruitful and beneficial relationships, even though they have been, but to a whole different level if I would have gotten the help earlier.
You know, that is a very hard fear to work through, the fear of another death.
Yeah.
And unless you've had these deaths, I don't think you can understand what it's like to have it kind of weigh on you. It's a terrible weight, it's a dread. And we can understand that in some ways it's a little irrational, but it
Yeah,
also is our reality. It happened.
it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a hard one to work through. I could see how a good therapist could help with a perspective, I guess.
Right.
You know, and I guess it's also the reminder that we are okay and we will be okay.
Yes. Yes.
It's hard to remember that sometimes, but we are okay and we will be okay.
100%.
So the name of your workshop is Leveraging Faith to Overcome Grief.
Yes.
And I'm curious, at the end of the workshop, what would you like our attendees to take away or feel?
I think it goes to the same points that we've talked about throughout this conversation. One, life is a gift. Just because different experiences happen to you and you may have lost somebody that's close to you doesn't mean that your life has to end too. Take the light that these people have brought to your life that are no longer with us and spread that light to all those that you encounter. People often joke all the time that those who did know my mom, I have the same smile and I bring that same light to their lives as she did. And the same is true for some of my other close loved ones that have passed away. So just don't let them in, don't let them die as well. Let their spirit live on in you. I really want them to take that away and to know that there is hope. You just have to believe in yourself. You have to take time to get the help that you need to heal and recover. And if you combo getting the help that you need with faith that everything can turn around for you and change your thought life and your thought processes, your life will drastically improve and become more beautiful, even more so than it was while the person was still living, I believe.
Yeah. You have really so many diverse interests. You're a chef.
Yes,
Yeah. You work full time
yes.
and you have a beautiful relationship with your wife. What else can you tell us about what life is like for you now?
Oh, it's a constant balancing act, but it's beautiful nonetheless because I have an opportunity with being a plant-based chef. I talk about holistic health and wellness from mind, body, money, and soul. And I kind of intersect that into my practice. But I believe that the first way that we achieve a holistic, healthy life is by the things that we put in our body because it drastically impacts our mind, how we connect with ourselves spiritually, and ultimately what we're able to receive financially. And so I kind of get to teach and promote that concept outside of doing that work. I love finance, so I that's what I do in my day job is I work with investments. I love it. I'm an engineer by I guess education, but have transitioned into the financial services space. And outside of pouring into my beautiful wife Alexis, I do enjoy just going to speak at different events. I also enjoy boxing, cooking, of course, and then reading are some of my favorite activities.
Okay, that's awesome. So for our viewers and listeners who'd like to know more about you, tell us how they can connect either through a website or your social media channels.
Of course. So our website is still underway, but you can definitely keep up with me at Nadeem some more on LinkedIn or chef double underscore Smoove on both TikTok and Instagram.
And I was telling Nadine before we started the recording that I watched some of his videos on Instagram, and so I would highly recommend them. Highly recommend them. They're
Thank you
fun.
so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Okay, Nadeem, thank you so much for being here with me today. We're looking forward to having you as one of our workshop presenters on October 26th.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'd love to have you join us on October 26th. You can go to caringourway.com to register. The event is free. It starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to do some interactive exercises with you throughout the morning so that you feel like, ah, I received the whole time I was with them. That's our goal. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.